Hey guys, I'm gonna talk today about an idea that's sort of controversial nowadays, but I think it's worth to always consider the flip side of the mainstream. And the new mainstream nowadays is that more decentralization is better. We believe that because, of course, we see so much abuse of power being made from the top-down hierarchical structure that we're being imposed on today. But if you think about it, our so-called democracies, democracy comes from demo, and cracy means people, power. So it's supposed to give people power. That being said, the only power that you have is to give a little is to put a piece of paper in a box once every 4-5 years, depending on the country that you're in, and it's supposed to be the input that will represent the orientation of the course of action of the hierarchy. So in a way, it's delusional to think that there is accuracy in the sense that really people's true opinion are being expressed by this very rudimentary form of engagement. Like the world is full of nuances, is full of so many different say shades of gray and concerns that people have that you cannot just represent in a piece of paper, But the illusion is there. It's like, yes, okay, you've got some kind of input into it. But let's say you choose, let's say you're American, either Trump or Biden, red or blue. Have you chosen whose people are gonna be at the forefront of those already? Not so much. So your choice is extremely limited, actually. But thanks to that, it gives the stimulus, the simulacra that actually people have power, when in reality they don't really. So we don't really have democracies. It's more a sort of oligarchy, or it's more like that the oligarchy puts some clowns in place that they are willing to sponsor, that are in charge. So in a way, you remove the discord in such a manner because everything is hidden. So you show a good show, a good facade that has all the apparent traits of a democracy, but without having the substance of it. So it's like all style, but very little substance. Potentially, an improvement could be a hyper democracy, where, let's say, the opinions and thoughts and ideas of everyone will be considered, and from all those input, a good output will be made. And that will be a great improvement already. If we can increase dramatically the bandwidth for which we gather the information, the data. If I want to use some startup terms, the wishes and desire of people, which is, let's say, the data of a politician, and then how do you process it and reshape the laws and the whole social game for people to live well, and for the environment also, which is very often which doesn't have a voice really to be represented. And we see that is the problem of today. It's like the environment doesn't have a voice. But that being said, if you also continue with the metaphor of the startups or the product design, because the rules of society is just the results of conscious design. Like you design stuff, you can design software. Imagine that also the laws are sort of a design. And it's sort of a game. It's like if you don't do this, well, you go to prison, you get this, you get punished. But if you do this, you get rewards. This is how do you balance the two? What do you get punished for? What you get rewarded for? And then ideally you will have good way of measuring progress of what you do, which is individual well-being, collective well-being, and environmental well-being. And it doesn't seem like those metrics of success are really what is incentivized by our current simulacras of democracies, unfortunately. So we are very attached to this idea of democracy, but actually there's so many different ways that actually the same word can mean lots of different things. Like in reality, I don't think people are in power. So but you stick the label and you say, well, this is what it is, and there's nothing better under the sun. So something I'd like to put forth as an idea, potentially, is that democracy may not be the best form of governmentation. I mean, Churchill says the least worst that we have at the moment, so why not? But it seems we are at a point where actually we realize that there are very serious shortcomings to it. And to give a bit of context, we got this word democracy from Plato's Republic, who was writing a dialogue that Socrates had. So like the very foundation of the Enlightenment and what gave us actually democracy and republics were all laid out in this very book. But in this very book, Socrates placed democracy as force. Number 4 out of the preferable ways to govern a whole bunch of people. In fact, he presented it as a sort of a silly idea, because for him, discernment is extremely important in order to organize and manage things. And yet, it's a very scarce resource. Let's say if you look at people's ability to judge, it's quite scarce that people are really able to judge, because you have to really have so much understanding of so many different things in order to have a fair judgment. Otherwise, you prejudge. You don't have enough information at hand to be able to lay down your opinion, and yet you still have one that has some direct consequences that could be negative or positive. And we see it with judges of today. They don't really fully understand people. You cannot judge what you don't understand. So for him, you should have people in power that are discerning. And so that's why he put in third, I believe, oligarchy, because he believed, wealthy people in a way have proven that they're wise because they're able to get away to ascend and potentially have a better education. You also have to keep in mind the context of the time, which is not everybody had access to education and were not always well behaved. So in this context, it completely made sense. It's to to live together as a society unless you're able to fight your more primitive impulses and learn how to work together is not a simple task. It requires education, moral education, not just instruction. And then he put a second, I believe, a sort of aristocracy, or like a nobility, basically. It was sort of how it was at the time. And first, he put this idea of a philosopher king. Maybe he was a bit biased in this enterprise because, well, he identified as a philosopher, and maybe it's a projection of his own subconscious desires. But that being said, if you look at the history of kingship, notably in France, it's sort of a double-edged sword. It's like either you have good kings and they're able to do absolute wonders for a country because they have the power, because they have the agency to do so, or they do crap, or they're in between and they let things rot and then things start to shit. So typically Louis XIV was a very tight hand, and he chopped some heads off, but he has been extremely constructive and being able to build lots of wealth, and people could see that he was going towards more and more progress, as opposed to, let's say, Louis XVI, who just wasn't willing to do very much, and so people were starving. And it's not that he was a bad king or a good king, but he did not care so much. And so in that context, the French Revolution came up. Because if you're not willing to take your responsibility and care for the people, then things turn to shit. So it's a double-edged sword, but something that I think contributes to a problem of today is actually too much decentralization. Globalization is decentralization. The financial system is decentralization covertly, in a way. Because this financial system is like a gigantic Ponzi scheme that is centralized, like who owns those banks. And if you trace back, it's just a few families that finally don't really have their name in the, who's the wealthiest, because, well, they don't really want people to know those things. And there's still banking secrets that are being preserved. You have your bank account in Switzerland, you can be sure they're never gonna... But I'm sure if we trace like who owns the company and who owns what, and if we could have the whole traceability, we will have some great surprises. That actually everything is centralized into some bad hands. But that being said, as well, on the facade of global system, is actually everyone blames somebody else, and no one takes full responsibility for the problems of our time. And I will put as first the ecological disaster that we're on the verge of. That's really difficult to enforce, how to change this behavior. Yet if you had a very tight hand that were not, that had some kind of coercive power, things will change. Things could change really fast. It's just we do not have this kind of power in place. So it's a potential route. If you look at open source projects, for instance, so projects that are very decentralized, or the DeFi, blockchain, Bitcoin, and all of that, it's still highly speculative, and it's still there's no coherence to it. And that's the problem of coherence. It's like with a whole bunch of people, is coherence gonna emerge all of its own? And we know that what's gonna be the result of all the individual actions from the bottom? Is it gonna surface something good out of it? Not sure. Not sure. People are very selfish by nature. Although I don't know if it's by nature or if it's because of the culture that is being put forward that makes them behave in those ways. But that being said, it's like the wisdom of the crowd is just a metaphor that doesn't really have much representation in reality. In fact, it's the very same lever that Hitler used in order to manipulate the masses. It took its strategical approach from a book written by a Frenchman actually called Gustave Le Bon, who studied the psychology of the masses as opposed to psychology of the individual. And that's something that's not very much talked about nowadays. Like we think about sociology, but we don't think about mass of people as like, they could have their own neuroses, their own psychological differences. And what he noticed is that masses become very emotional and not very rational at all. And that's a very consistent pattern, and that's how you're able to pull the string. So I don't think the collective result of people left on its own, without some kind of let's say moral authority. I'm not saying like there ought to be a coercive authority that organize people way of thinking, but we need some sort of moral authority that potentially, a guy like Jordan Peterson have been in a way embodying for some segment of the population, but not everyone. It's still alienating to lots of people. But we're looking for this type of, let's say, soft power. And I think that's why we observe the rise of this interest into sense makers. Or like, Russell Brand or Yuval Noah Harari. Those are guys that are really useful to help guide the collective narrative. And I think their importance is gonna be more and more prevalent as the shit hits the fan more and more. It's like this. Actually, the world is in a state of chaos. It's like no one wants to take, real ownership for things and get shit done. But also, there's so much friction because there's no consensus. People still debate whether or not climate change is a real thing. I mean, it's a silly affair, but it's easy to live in denial and shut down. I don't need to talk to you if I don't want to. It's like presidents and powers in place, they just ghost each other, instead of really have an honest debate, which they ought to have, and they don't really have the humility to confront their own misguided belief. So yeah, it's just an idea, but it feels also very much like New World Order. That's the problem as well. It's like, on the flip side, you could say, well, actually, potentially, it would be useful for us to have a bit of centralization on the world stage. But then who's gonna do that? What kind of features can you... and how can you make sure that there's no abuse of this power? It's really difficult because most, let's say, liberators of a country end up becoming dictators. So absolute power can corrupt absolutely. But I would say instead of one figurehead at the top, which we have been So that's my innovation beyond the idea of philosopher king is potentially, what if you put two people at least in charge? So you make sure that it's not about one person, but it's about the relationship. And potentially one male, one female, that are complementary, that, I don't know. Or like a wise council, like, let's say if we look at our roots of social organization, it's like small communities of 150 individuals, and then you have the elders, or let's say the wise one, who will gather in circle and debate together. But it's only the people who are, considered wise enough to be able to do this work, or willing to do it enough, because not everybody is willing to do that. It takes some work, it takes, thinking. So I'd love to see, potentially, and I'm just being speculative, putting some idea forward that, at the beginning appears silly, but it can grow in some people's mind and takes different shape, and who knows, maybe as democracy started in the idea of one person, and then many centuries later it happened in real life, maybe the very little thoughts and idea that seems silly at first in my head can have the potential to trickle down in reality. Maybe not now, but maybe in a few centuries, if we're still. But ideas spread faster than they used to be. So I have hopes that potentially it could fit some of the collective imagination to go just beyond what we've been served. Like, we could imagine so many different ways to organize ourselves as people, and we haven't considered it as much. So I'd like to think that my mind is very has a capacity for divergence, for considering things that very few people have considered before. That at the beginning it appears silly and crazy, but all revolutionary ideas started their lives this way. Immature, a bit childish, a bit naive, and yet it's the new generation that will supplant the old one. The new takes the old. So what's the new? What are the new ideas that we could put forward? That will be a good ideological vehicle for the future. Is what I'm concerned with. So I'm considering, more centralization could be a good thing, but I'm not dogmatic about it. And it's just like, it's something useful to consider potentially. Something that's kind of the flip side of what we've been served from one end of the scale or not. Because it's a very left-wing idea, like in a way, communist, anarchist ideal of like all together, it's gonna emerge from the bottom, grassroots movements, and I'm all for that. But my direct experience of reality is I know that those experiences often don't have enough coherence. They don't have enough of a good direction, and they fail. And that's annoying because we as individuals long for equality. We don't really like someone who thinks that they're better than us. And but that being said, some people have a better judgment than others, and you will want the most competent people to be in charge. It's just we don't have the most competent people in charge because we don't have the right process to put those people in charge. So as well, perhaps a good discussion will be, what is the process to put good people in charge that could be different from, let's say, the political game that we have. Because the political game that we have puts some people that are really good at playing the social game, playing alliances with a bunch of people so it can get them elected. Saying things that gonna please the most because it will give them a strategic advantage, as opposed to it's what's required to do. So we put people in power that actually don't have much like personal opinion. All they do is it's plotting, basically. They're just plotters, they're just marketers, they're just in the business of seduction, so style, sophistic. The enemy of philosophy, a philosopher, is sophist. So they're all sophists. And so for Plato, Socrates, it's the opposite of the kind of people that you ought to give power to. The people who are in the realm of appearances. You will want people who are in the realm of substance. But yet they are not the type of people who seek power. Like if you have a limited amount of time, will you focus your time on seeking wisdom, knowledge, understanding, or will you look to promote yourself? And it's also your interest. Huh? Some people don't really have the passion for promoting themselves. And in a way, those are the people that I believe personally you ought to listen to, because they are not biased by their own pursuit of success. Like success in a sense, for a philosopher, success is getting closer to getting a great approximation of truth. It's not necessarily being famous. Look at Diogenes or even Socrates. Is he's been put to trial, he's been put to jail, and he was willing to challenge people's belief. So when you're really questioning and challenging people's belief, you're not winning a popularity contest. It's just like maybe later on, like Galileo, we realize, oh shit, he was right, but we killed him. It's always the same pattern. No? It's like it takes time for ideas to mature, because people attach their very identity to the belief that they hold. So when you challenge those beliefs, but it's like you need to move forward somewhere. When you challenge their core belief, it's like you're their direct enemy. And that's the problem with democracy. It's like, when you say some things that sounds true but are very bitter, it's gonna hurt people. And because people are hurt, they're not gonna like you. Like they need, let's say, scapegoating their emotional torments. It's like you're the source of sadness to them, so they're gonna rationalize their emotion and say, no, you're bad. No, no, I don't like you. I don't like you, I don't listen to you. But that's what politicians understand. Huh? They try so hard to be liked, so that you will listen to everything that they say, no matter how true it is or not. Look at Trump. Actually, Trump is a fantastic archetype of, sort of a clown, but a charismatic one. Who actually is like, there's almost like no doubts in his demeanor, but he's so like it's all cockiness and confidence and something that people can hang on to. It's all seduction, but very little substance. But it still works. It still does work. So, and he's been elected. Much like Hitler. So you see that people are not that rational creatures, and you need rationality in order to move forward on good grounds. But rationality is not always fun. It's like it's not. It's just the way things are, and the way things are is not always great. But we are in a society where Like, don't make me feel bad. Don't make me feel bad. Give me entertainment. Give me some sweet stuff. So that's why. Maybe it's going to be challenging if I say that democracy may not be the magic bullet that we've been led to believe. And I don't have a ready-made cookie-cutter solution, for something better than it. Although I have some inception of ideas that potentially someone else can complete, and it can grow from that. But I'd like some other form of organization beyond democracy to be considered. I think it will be healthy, and not to take things too personally and to be too offended by just putting the possibility out there. Because, of course, we don't want like a fascistic utopia, dystopia where, there's like a superior race or something. But in a way, what I think is there's still something that potentially were attractive in the inception of, let's say, those ideologies, which are toxic, of course, fascism and Nazism. But there was something. It's the sort of heroism and the sort of like a superiority of behavior that we find in Nietzsche, actually, that we sort of lost. That now, because we want everybody to be equal, and we use the term equality as almost like a dogma. It's like we all have to be the same, but we are not all the same. Not not everyone is a Kenyan. Like Kenyan, for instance, their body shape is very fit for them to win marathons. So they win marathons, like they have a natural ability for it. And that's hard to deny, like we are not equal compared to Kenyans when it comes to running long distances. And it's the same. Some people have natural abilities to, some people are stronger than others. Some people are smarter than others. Some people are more creative than others. All those kinds of things. And it's just the way things are. But that's the thing that's really disturbing, when you say that actually, some people are smarter than others. There's something quite disturbing about that idea. Because it feels like it's unfair. But in my own opinion, it's not about equality. It's more about let's put people in the right boxes, and just intelligence is not it's not an absolute marker of value. So empathy, for instance, potentially could be a bigger marker of value than just intelligence. That's why Hitler was extremely intelligent, but he was not very empathic, and you could say he had a negative net value, in the term that his presence in this world were almost like parasitic, as opposed to symbiotic. I forgot where I wanted to go with this. But as well, empathy, I believe, so not just being smart, but I think empathy, we ought to select people in that we put in charge for how empathic they are, and how much they're willing to listen and understand people. So in a way, it's not a leadership from the top that exerts coercive power, but it's more from the bottom, supporting one. like a cheerleader, like cheerleader in chief, you know, instead of you know, the commandant, the overlord. No, is the under. I don't know. Like someone who can inspire, like Martin Luther King or John Lennon. You know, see like kings of hearts. You know, not necessarily like. Those are people that had lots of power, that had a dramatic but good impact on society. So I don't know if they would be able to really organize people in concrete terms. You know, maybe it's not their jam, but potentially they would. You know, they will find some people that are able to do so. You know, maybe at the top you need like those type of let's say storytellers that are able to capture the hearts of people as well as their minds, but not in a masquerading type of way. Not because you know, they've learned it as part of a communication strategy, but because they really truly embody their message. I mean, at least I'd like to believe that, and maybe that's my own subconscious projection, much like you know, Philosopher King was the projection of Socrates. But and as well, I think the feminine ought to be considered as well. You know, I mean, it's unavoidable. You know, that's why maybe I don't know what I'm saying. Maybe an alchemical government with like a female side and a masculine side, one in charge of storytelling, the heart, and one is charge of reason and material stuff could be another way to go about it, but maybe I'm gonna keep that for another video. So thanks for watching this, and yeah, ponder upon that. Have a lovely day.